Oh my goodness. It it has been a minute since I have been back on live. It's been crazy. I've been out the country for 3 months. Into 2025, I kind of did a whole social media hiatus, and I was trying to figure out when exactly I was going to hop back on social media. But before addressing why I was off social media, all the crazy things that happened in 2025, the blessings, the lessons, and all the leadership skills that you can take away from my trials and tribulations and apply to help you become a better leader, I brought on a special guest for today. Now, currently, I am experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties trying to make sure that this live stream with a guest goes very well for you guys. But just give me a moment as I set up this live stream to make sure that you can not only see me, but you can hear me and hear the guests that I'm bringing on to provide amazing value to you guys. Just be patient with me. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna go ahead and pop back to the intro slide, and then we gonna get back to it in 2 minutes tops. Okay. So it's looking like I got this whole live stream figured out. It's looking like I got it figured out now. I'm gonna be testing out as we go on today's live, but just so I can make it clear again, I'm back. I haven't been doing content for like over over 6 months now. I left out the country mid-June last year, got back in around September, and then once I got back in September, I never really started back up the content thing because so many crazy things have happened in the year 2025 for me that I had to take an emotional reset. And without getting too deep into the weeds, because that'll be the next live stream, I want to make sure that I really introduce an amazing guest that I brought on to bring in 2026 content with me with a bang. So I'm gonna be testing things out as we go because I just had to
If you can hear me, you're on mute. I'm sorry.
yes, just had to transition things over to Zoom. So let me bring in the guest now. Let me make sure. So perfect. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Are we live right now?
Yes, we are live.
Okay.
So they can hear you. I haven't gotten to introducing you yet, but I wanted to make
Okay.
sure I tested things out so the entire audience would be able to actually see you and give you. So I'm adding you into the stream now, and I'm going to give you the entire screen. So instead of doing side by side right now, I'm going to highlight you. You will be the only face on the camera. And before I actually have you do your own introduction, I want to give you the introduction that you rightfully deserve. You've been so patient with me as figuring out these technical difficulties going into this. So today, audience, I am introducing to you Tisha Monet. Tisha Monet is a emotional awareness coach, author, and a woman on a mission to close one of the most overlooked gaps in how we function as human beings. Tisha's path to coaching didn't start in a lecture hall. It started in her own life. With a background rooted in healthcare, she always has been wired to help people heal. But it was her own personal journey through heartbreak, growth, and deep inner work that revealed her true calling. She found that most people can tell you exactly what happened to them, but when you ask how they feel about it, they go blank. And as Tisha will tell you, you cannot regulate what you cannot name. That insight became the foundation of her entire practice. Certified in science, psychology, and Ayurveda spirituality, Tisha takes a full mind, body, and spirit approach to emotional wellness, helping her clients identify, articulate, and regulate their emotions so they can finally embody the version of themselves they've been always wanting to be. She serves clients virtually across the US, London, Africa, and is part of the Remembrance Circle, an intentional alliance of coaches specializing in somatic healing, embodiment, and purpose driven transformation. In 2026, she's taking her work even further, stepping into soul healing retreats, live workshops, and even in person experiences for people ready to do the deep work. Her mission, in one line, is where heartbreak becomes the portal to self connection and emotional safety becomes your new standard. Please give a warm welcome to Tisha Monet. Thank you so much for being a guest. You know, as I transition back into this content journey, I really found your content getting back on social media really inspiring. So, um, just to dive right into it, I introduced you, so I don't want to double do things. I really want to dive straight into your area of expertise and talk about the gap between people being able to describe a situation versus actually naming how they feel about it. What is that disconnect? Like, where does that disconnect come from? And is it something we're taught or something we never learned how to truly do at a deeper level?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. And first, thank you so much for that introduction. That I am honored and grateful. So thank you for that, for putting that together for me. So to answer, is this something that we are intended as alongside systems? And I believe, just from my personal experiences and through my education, that it begins with how we relate to emotions on a general basis. Like, just speaking, do you relate to your emotions, to just to like anger, lust, greed, hate, those types of emotions? We attach a meaning to them. they have a negative connotation. So a lot of times if someone feels anger or greed or lust or envious, they suppress it or repress it because they think something is wrong with them for feeling that way. When in actuality, it is sometimes appropriate. Our emotions are, however we feel to a specific stimuli is appropriate. It's the feeling or the emotion that is ever the problem. It's our behavior and the meaning that we attach to it. So the gap that I see and the mission that I'm on is to just get people to relate to emotions in a more healthy way. Know that there is nothing inherently wrong with you for feeling these emotions. They are here for a reason. And once we allow ourselves to feel them and take away the message, then we'll be able to navigate tumultuous situations a bit better, whether that's personal, relational, or professional. So that's the gap that I primarily see. It begins with how we relate to emotions on a very basic level.
That's 100%, 100% agree there. I think it's unfortunate that a lot of our youth specifically are learning to navigate emotions for the first time, like as they go through it. They're not taught a lot of the times that, hey, it's okay, this emotion that people label as bad is actually quite normal. We all feel it. We may not talk about it, we may not communicate it because sometimes we're embarrassed to talk about these negative emotions, but ultimately we do feel those levels of insecurity. We do feel sometimes the level like being inadequate, like we may not be enough for the challenge ahead of us, whatever goal we're trying to achieve. So, what does it look like when someone can't identify their own emotions? Like, what are signs that people miss when they're actually reflecting on themselves?
Oh, that's a great question. So typically what I notice when I'm in session with clients and I ask my client how something makes them feel, if they immediately go to action. Like you can say, well, how did that make you feel? And they'll say something like, well, I just down. I just didn't want to talk. And it's like that's a behavior, but how did it make you feel? So I noticed that when my clients go immediately to the behavior, like they skip over how something made them feel, I that's a indicator to me that they are not in tune, that they actually can't name it. They actually don't know because they've been maybe for a long time they've suppressed it, they've numbed it, so initially the body has gotten so used to just overriding that part that they immediately just go to the behavior. So that's the indicator to me like this particular person needs to tap into the body, needs to begin to slow down and reflect. So that's a major indicator for me when they can't name an actual emotion, they go straight to an action.
Man, that actually, man, it's like I'm reflecting on myself. Sometimes I can be
Mm.
really outcome driven, and that can stop some of the emotional deep self reflection from happening in the moment. Sometimes when it can happen earlier, I find myself being real reflective alone, even as I am building and helping others get better at this. Sometimes I'm so focused on the outcome. I'm only focused on addressing how is my action going towards the outcome, not how do I feel doing this action and
Mm.
showing up at the as the best version of me in that moment. So I 100% feel that and see it in others, but sometimes it can even be harder to recognize in yourself. So you have to remember. So I appreciate you sharing that point. That really hit home.
Hmm.
And talking about those things that are hard to see, I know since we're reflecting on the relationship that emotions have with ourself, it can be hard to necessarily describe, I guess, the definition of what emotional safety is. Like
Mm.
how do you specifically define emotional safety as it relates to ourself? Like having emotional safety as it relates to just ourselves, not the world's expectations, but how we see ourselves. How do you define that? And why does it have to start with us before it can exist anywhere else?
Oh, this I love this question. Thank you for asking that. So it goes back to what I was saying with how we relate to our emotions. You can only offer yourself emotional safety if you are not afraid to feel your emotions. If you are constantly hiding, numbing, suppressing, guilt shaming yourself for feeling certain things, that's not safe. You can't offer yourself emotional safety if you think you are bad for experiencing specific emotions. That is literally you are um you are chastising yourself. You're punishing yourself. But when you reframe that as whatever it is that I'm feeling, it is for a reason. That's why you feel it. And then also, emotional safety has a lot to do with self trust. That I would say, I would argue that self trust must come before you can offer yourself emotional safety. Because in order to offer yourself that, you have to trust that what you're feeling is warranted. And that's another thing. Like a lot of times, people explain away how they feel, or they'll talk themselves out of it. Oh, it's not that deep, it's not that serious, I shouldn't be feeling this way. They intellectualize their emotions as opposed to just allowing themselves to feel it. So you can't offer yourself safety whether you're shaming yourself, whether you're intellectualizing it, whether you're explaining it away. You can't offer yourself safety if you don't feel safe to feel it. And then obviously that correlates into the real world, because whatever you can't offer yourself, you can't offer someone else. So if you are uncomfortable feeling your own emotions, there is no way that you can hold someone else's, whether that's a partner, your child, a friend, a family member. If you are afraid of yourself, there is no way that you will ever be able to navigate someone else's emotions when they need to come to you with something. So that's why it's important for it that it starts with self. You are the foundation. You are the ground for the fundamental process of being able to hold yourself and other people. So I would say first, self trust. You have to, and why the self trust is not there. Like, why have we been conditioned to doubt ourselves when we feel something, when someone does something to us? It's a lot of times we don't speak up because we make a for it. I shouldn't be feeling this way, or it wasn't that serious, or they didn't mean it. Whether they meant it or not, or whether it was malicious or not, honor yourself. This begins with the self-worth, you knowing your value, you knowing your worth. If you know your worth, you know that it is okay to honor your feelings. That doesn't mean that you have to demonize someone. It just means that you are honest with how something impacted you. And you can begin doing that the moment you create space to feel your emotions. And the more you get comfortable with feeling your own, the more you can be comfortable with feeling somebody else's.
Wow. I love how you took the time to really go in depth there about the
Mhm.
relation between emotional trust, like trusting your emotions, and then being able to have that level of emotional safety. I think that's huge because um with 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 trusting yourself, a lot of time it does come back to societal norms, things we've been told and taught. Because unfortunately, like we're not unfortunate, or labeling it that way doesn't do it justice. We come into this world as blank canvases, like for the most part, we're blank canvases. We learn through
Mhm.
experiences, but also we look at our parents. Some people grow up with mom and dad, some people grow up with just mom, some people grow up with just dad, and we look at how they navigate things and we mimic, and we sometimes don't even know all the decision making processes, all our parents' life experiences that went into making that decision of I can't feel bad right now. And it's even worse when you're so used to seeing a parent, whether you grew up in that two-parent household or just that one-parent household, constantly not even making time to feel their own emotions because they just got to get it done. They
Mm,
just have to make
mm,
something happen. And
mm,
it's it's beautiful to hear that being said, that first we have to build that level of trust with our emotions, because sometimes when you are so outcome focused, you forget that the level of trust required with yourself is like is up there compared to the level of trust with the world, because the only person you live with your entire life is yourself, and you need to be able to have that
Mm-hmm.
ability to go ahead and know when you're feeling something, it's okay to feel it, and you need to navigate that accordingly. So
Mm-hmm.
that was beautiful. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but transitioning a little bit into like building relationships with others. I know that you talk about relationships a lot specifically on your page, and like some of your highest viewed videos are about relationships. Um, when you build a relationship with other, once you have that emotional safety, once you have that level of emotional safety, how do you intertwine another individual with that in a healthy manner? Because we're two different
Mm-hmm.
people. One of us got, one of us may be coming from a background where we have seen examples that our emotions are okay, but maybe we didn't learn how to communicate that effectively. And others of us aren't coming from a background where they thought their emotions were okay at all, but they may just be
Mm-hmm.
better at communicating their emotions and realizing, because they didn't think their emotions were okay, they were okay with realizing like how to hold space for oneself and the other in a way that somebody that didn't grow up knowing how to communicate it, but just knew it was okay to feel, didn't learn how to communicate. So that communication barrier can become a problem. How do you, like, what are the steps in little, like, if you had a little framework for how to build that level of emotional trust and safety with a partner involved?
Hmm. Well, the first comes first. You need two willing partners. Both like none two willing partners. If one is maybe, I don't want to say, I guess more advanced in expressing themselves, they probably, and a lot of times it's just about having the vocabulary. It's not that people don't want to express themselves or articulate themselves. Some people just don't have the words. They don't have the vocabulary to name the thing. So but if they have the willingness to say, I'm feeling something right now, I don't know what I'm feeling, can you help me unpack this? If you have two willing partners, then I wholeheartedly, 10 toes down, believe that that can be a prosperous relationship. But if you have one person in denial, um, they think that they communicate well, or they think that, but you can clearly see, as someone who is in tune with their emotions, that that something's missing, then I would say there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So first come first, two willing partners. If they are not exactly on the same level, but the willingness is there, and each person has the capacity for the other, because we have to remember this is also about capacity. Just because someone might be willing, that doesn't mean that the other person has the capacity to kind of be their teacher, for lack of a better word.
Mm.
So we have willingness, we have capacity, and then we have receptiveness. So if you have those things and the patience, you can be able to help navigate, that starts again with the safety, letting them know that this is a judgment-free zone, this is a safe space. When they do express themselves, you become curious. That's like, I would say that's like my number one framework, is lead with curiosity. That's personally my own love language. Leading with curiosity is leading with love. So even if you're finding it that hard for someone to articulate themselves, or it's hard for, you see someone maybe struggling in that area, ask questions. The more reflective questions you ask, you naturally naturally find their own words. You're literally creating new neural pathways and thoughts that you hadn't thought of before. So when you become curious and you engage from a beginner state of mind, and you might something like, "What do you mean? Can you tell me more about?" You are now creating space for that person that they probably have never been given space to explore before. So now when you give them that space, you allow for new thoughts, new realizations, new depth to emerge. All we have to do is create the space, and you create the space by being curious. So I would say the first framework to navigating that that in a relationship, curious, ask questions. If you're finding it hard to understand them, or you see that they're struggling with articulating themselves, ask what is it, really listen, and what is it that you feel that you are missing, or that they are trying to express that they're having a hard time. Say, tell me more about that. How did that make you feel? Or what did you do? Or how would it look if you were able to do that? Um, always lead with the open-ended questions, and that'll give you an answer. So who, what, when, where, why, and how. If you begin your question with any one of those, we learned that in grammar school, you're giving someone space to explore and create new neural pathways.
I really like that, and I really like the
Mhm.
point you hit on about capacity, as well.
Mhm.
Having the capacity to help and be there with your partner, and as we go throughout out life, we get taught in school theory. We get taught in school theory. You get psychological theory. If this happens, supposedly this is supposed to happen. But as we all know, when it comes to doing models in our head, thinking about how things could go, a lot of times the real life situations may not happen like that because we don't address
Mhm.
all those distractions that get in the way. And then our capacity gets taken up with other things. So when we could, in a world where we only worry about X and Y, but we forget about A, B, C, D, like we forget about all those different
Mhm.
factors, we don't address that capacity aspect. One thing that came to my mind, and I didn't have this question prepared, is how does a couple navigate, um, because we're talking about couples right now, but I do want to move into friendships a little bit later.
Mhm.
How does a couple specifically navigate the realities of if they don't have necessarily the emotional capacity to be, um, I guess, helping the other partner maybe catch up on the communication side of their emotions? Like, imagine being in a situation where you're two busy people and then you want to
Mhm.
have that good loving time together, but you also want to address the problems. But you have so little capacity. You come home, you only got 1 hour, 2 hours if we got to go back to bed and do it all over again. And you're like, I just want to spend this enjoyable time with my partner. But you have real emotional needs, real emotional things that are getting in the way that you want to address. But maybe, this conversation lately has been blowing up into a, 2 hour conversation. Now we're going to bed without that loving connection that all, partnerships need, relationships need. How do you address capacity problems in making sure that you can, with lower capacity, with not having all this space, like what are the strategies around that when those are real world, distractions,
Mhm.
work or other responsibilities, kids that get in the way, and you have this small amount of time with your partner every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that you're talking about capacity in the sense of like time and real world distractions. That's slightly different than emotional capacity. Because with emotional capacity, typically that spills over into other areas in your life. So if you have just a wide bandwidth of emotional capacity, you're more likely, typically speaking, less likely to have all those other distractions because you handle them more diligently, if that makes sense, right? You're not procrastinating, you're not waiting to the last minute, you're not putting things off because you have the capacity to. So it kind of is like a ripple effect, like a domino effect. I would say, to answer your question, in a scenario where you have a situation, a conflict within the couple, and you need like actual time, this is where intentionality comes in, right? During the week, if you have children, if you're both working, you're both busy, you might not have time. Now it's about intentionality. Now it's about being able to set something down gently, but it not affecting the connection between the two people.
Mm.
So it's acknowledging, right? I want to emphasize acknowledging that there is something there that needs to be discussed, that we need to tend to. However, we don't really have the physical, like in time, in real time and space capacity to address it, because it might be something that might take a couple of hours. However, just because that is there, that should not impede on the intimacy, the emotional safety, the connection, the affection. I personally don't believe that repeat on that if you acknowledge it and make an intentional time to come back to it. Right. So it's about not pretending that the elephant is not in the room. It's addressing the elephant and saying, this week is pretty hectic. I know that this is going to take some time for us to really come to a mutual ground. I want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge how you feel. Let's set some time aside where we can really sit down and tackle this together. But during that time, you guys still show up the way that you need to show up for each other. And I help navigate that. So I would say leading with intention.
Wow. I can't, that is a very practical yet like
Hmm.
powerful way of handling things. Cause that's why I wanted to ask the question. Like we get into those real world scenarios where, like you said, like we're two imperfect people. There's always the equation for a relationship is always two imperfect people coming together trying to create a strong, purposeful, meaningful relationship. And things happen where, we both had a stressful day and our emotional capacity is dragged down because we just want to get home. We want to have fun with each other. But we also know, just like that job we got done with, or that the kid we just got through taking care of, or one dropping off at school, one picking up from activities, all these different things are at us emotionally. And
Hmm.
our emotional capacity is down by the time we got home, and we know that the relationship suffers, our partnership suffers once
Yes.
we use that entire 2 hours to not necessarily replenish each other, but to the hard work sometimes.
Now we're talking about a problem. Yes,
Yes.
yes. And that's why I say it's so important to acknowledge it. All like you'll actually be surprised that if by just acknowledging it, sometimes you can make your partner feel heard. Like it's just the acknowledgement. Like it's so important. Like I understand that this thing has been bothering you, or I've noticed lately you've been feeling like this, or I understand that things haven't been the same. Like just acknowledgement and then setting time aside to be intentional to actually tackle whatever it is. But from what I've experienced, you will be surprised by just doing that and then spending time to love on each other, be intentional, the intimacy, the affection, that sometimes can solve whatever the problem was. Because at the core of it, we all just want connection. We want to feel seen. We want to feel heard. So, in your attempt to acknowledge whatever is the elephant in the room, you are simultaneously doing that. So, but if it's something else, it could be finances, right? That's more a little bit more tangible, or it could be living arrangement, logistics, things like real world tangible things. Those things require conversations, but just acknowledging, hey, I know that we've been, kind of going back and forth with finances, and I want to set some time to talk about that, but not walking around acting like there's nothing to tend to. That's the part where people begin to feel invisible in the relationship.
Mm, man, I can't I can't find myself acknowledging enough how important that
Hmm.
is. And
Yeah.
there was a lot of relationships that that may be their roadblock, where things are good. They came into things where things were a lot more smooth. Now then the real stuff start hitting them, the real relationships and the real relationship issues start hitting them, and now they in this in between stage where now, especially young couples, right? Young couples, they building
Hmm.
themselves. They trying to take on more things outside of the relationship in regards to like moving their professional careers forward, and now they so busy and they coming home, all these things pulling at them, and at night it's like, I don't want to spend the whole 2 hours addressing the issue because we need to replenish each other, but let's just talk about the fact that it's there. That's beautiful, and
Yes,
I
yes.
really wanted to just acknowledge how powerful that is. But
Mhm.
spend a little bit of time on professional relationships, friendships. Friendships.
Okay.
Those relationships that we get before. The parents. We start dating and all that stuff. Um,
Hmm.
when it comes to like finding someone who is capable of dealing with that disagreement that comes with just being two imperfect individuals. Once again, you have friends that come together and they not perfect. We live in a world today where social media tell you if this person disagree with you, oh yeah, we don't deal with that person. But That's just
Mhm.
not the reality. I got a lot of friends who disagree with me on how things are in the relationship, politically, whatever it
Mhm.
is. And it don't mean I just completely shy away from building a relationship with that person. How do we navigate the level of sensitivity that mainstream media can sometimes make us feel is warranted to just dismiss people? And how do we know the boundary between, is this a boundary that I really need to uphold and just remove this person from my life, versus this person just
Mhm.
thinks differently than me? How do we navigate those two things? Because it can be related to political views, religion. Like, how do we navigate those two and set those healthy boundaries with friends that we navigate and network and connect with?
Yeah, checking in with yourself, with how you feel in the relationship, with any relationship, whether it's romantic, professional, a friendship. If you are having a difference of opinion with someone, that is fine. That is never enough to dismiss someone or to just throw someone away or a relationship or a connection away. It's how people behave and navigate the differences, the difference of opinion. Are you condescending? Are you defensive? Do you listen to actually understand? I feel like it's so basic and fundamental, but it's so overlooked and so missed in society. It's a cliche, right? We hear it all the time. Listen to respond, listen to understand. We can say that all day because we intellectualize it. We understand the concept of that. We understand why that makes sense. But in real time, when your nervous system is triggered, when your ego is flared up, all you want to do is focus on being right. So the moment that you try to win the conversation, you are already uh you're jeopardizing the connection. You're choosing ego over the connection. Anytime you're having any type of disagreement, the moment your objective is to win that argument, you've already lost.
Mm.
So like it's not about winning something. It's about honestly understanding someone else's perspective. That doesn't mean that you are subscribing to it. That doesn't mean that you are agreeing to it. And I want to be like really real here, right? Because this is not like some robotic thing where we're going to be like, okay, like there will be emotions in the midst of the conversations, especially if you're being challenged. We are still human, but the practice is slowing down. Once you have the awareness that, I'm feeling something, I'm feeling triggered because they're disagreeing with me or they're challenging me. Once you get that awareness, that is the opportunity to choose differently, to say, you know what, I recognize I'm getting triggered or something. I can do one of a few things. I can pause the conversation so I can gather my thoughts. Sometimes we just need to process. Or I can reframe in that moment if you're a bit more experienced and you can reframe the thought. I recognize that I'm reacting. So let me really listen to them, right? Let me really listen to understand them. But this whole narrative that if someone disagrees with you, they're not for you or they're out of alignment, I always believe in addressing something and giving it its proper course to actually collect the data, because when we are in relationships with people, I don't want to make it sound like we're computers or anything like that, but we are collecting data. We are observing each other. We're learning each other's responses. So when I say something to you and you respond a particular way to me over and over again, you are registering to my nervous system your pattern. How you register to me, how you show up is then going, my nervous system is going to indicate whether you feel safe or not, if you are a safe person for me or not, is how you respond to me. Now, over time, when you collect enough data, that's when you have to be honest with yourself. And that's when you can ask yourself the question, is this a relationship that is worth me staying in? Or is this a relationship where I got to pick? And that's not something that you just make, especially if you value the person, that takes time. So you see how they show up. You and same. This is a two-way street. Everything that I'm saying for one party applies to the other. So you see how they show up. You see how your body responds to them, how they make you feel, and then you just check in with yourself. Do I have the capacity to continue with this person, or is this like a hard no for me? And then now we're getting into self-abandonment, because the moment you go past your threshold, only you what your threshold is. The moment you go past your own threshold, now you're walking in self-abandonment territory. Now that what you said, when do we use discernment to actually say this relationship is this person is not for me, or is this worth me continually to subject myself to? And that's a question only you can answer. But you have to know your worth. You have to know yourself. You have to know how you want to feel versus how you presently feel. You have to just do a lot of self inquiry. And that takes time. It takes time. So, and there's no right or wrong here. Sometimes people make decisions quicker than earlier, quicker than later, because it depends on the person and where they place these people in their life. If you are someone that I really want to go forth with, then I'm gonna put in that extra effort. I might be a little bit with you than I would someone else who I wasn't, and that's the thing. This is why we have to build a strong sense of self, because the average person will take that as rejection when it is actually just redirection. That's it. Whoever doesn't choose you, it's the reframe there is them not rejecting you. They're just choosing what aligns with them. So if you continuously look at everything that way, you understand that you're not losing. And it's nobody's loss. Nobody's losing. Everybody's just seeking their alignment for themselves. And that, like, I truly believe that. Yeah.
That's amazing. That feeds right back into the knowing, like everything feeds back into the emotional awareness with
Hmm.
yourself, your emotional capacity, your ability to articulate what you're feeling and do that in a healthy way. That is amazing, and it's funny how even friendships, because friendships, deep friendships are lifelong commitments, just like relationships, a
Hmm.
potential marriage. These are lifelong commitments. So it's kind of that parallel. You see it a lot in friendships and close, deeper, intimate relationships. It's very similar in that sense. That's just amazing. And I want to move into professional relationships. I believe that emotional intelligence, from what I've seen, maybe not specifically in the coaching space, but if we're talking about the business space, but specifically, it isn't talked about much. Emotional intelligence isn't talked about as much in the professional setting. Why do you think that is, and what does it cost people when they ignore emotional intelligence as it relates to work, business, investing, these
Yeah.
professional topics?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, well, professionally, just from, and this is not necessarily my specialization, but just from what I have seen in my personal professional opinion, it's because there's a narrative and belief that everything must be derived from logic. And with that, everything is just one plus one equals two. There's no nuance with logic, there's no complexity with logic. And it's not to say that logic is bad. It exists for a reason, but as anything in life, we need the duality. You need, if you want to be a person that comes to something in a whole manner, you need both logic and emotion. Just operating from logic will, it has the potential for you to be perceived as callous, um, lack of compassion, lack of humanity, lack of humility, because everything is super calculated. But we are human beings that literally navigate the world through emotions. Everything is based on emotion, how something makes you feel. The music, the places we go to, the food that we eat, the things that we watch, the people that we engage with is all predicated on how it makes you feel, literally. So when you think about it from that perspective, it goes hand in hand in the professional world because we want to I feel like if you want to be fulfilled, you need to incorporate both. But and the reality is most people are in survival mode, which is where logic kind of primarily lives because you don't have space for complexity and nuance when you're in survival mode. Is I gotta make money, I gotta eat, I gotta feed my kids, I gotta pay my bills. That's survival mode. That's logic, and that makes sense. But without the emotional aspect, what does that typically lead people? Being stressed out on jobs that they don't like, being unfulfilled, being miserable, right? Because they're not holding both. And then why is that? It comes down to the belief system. Do they believe that they can have both? And when we are raised in a survival society, I personally believe that the belief system is that a lot of people don't think that they can have both. I gotta make money. I gotta go to work. like, I hear it in everyday general conversations. I literally hear it every day. And if I may share my personal backstory, I come from corporate America. As you mentioned earlier in my bio, I have a long history in healthcare. I graduated with my BA in communications, media, and field broadcasting. I went into healthcare. I don't even know. Like my passion has always been in communications, film, media, speaking, helping people. And I landed a corporate job at the age of 23 in healthcare, and I didn't leave until the age of 37. And as of last year, because I was in survival mode, I'm like, I gotta make money. I have to live. I gotta pay bills. Until I decided to take a leap of faith, where I literally just bet everything on myself, and I haven't looked back since. So I use my emotional aspect in order to make that decision because I did not like the way that I felt, and I adopted the mindset that I am worthy and deserving to live a full, whole life and not just be at a job where I was making decent money, but it was literally causing me anxiety. I was literally stressed. I was literally dreading the work days. I'm like, I gotta live the rest of the next 20, 30 years like this. I literally couldn't fathom it. And that was enough for me to say, I can't do this anymore. And I just been working for myself ever since. And that was my threshold, and everyone's threshold looks differently, but I say that to say that was emotional in addition to logic. Like, I did not like the way I was feeling, and I was not willing to continue to feel that way because I was living in survival mode. And I don't think that if you are only operating from logic, you're more likely to stay in survival mode.
That is very, like, it's extremely profound in the sense that it connects the dot on a lot of reasons why things happen. Like you said,
Hmm.
when you're in survival mode, you are not able to have the ability to add emotion in there. So you're just like logic, no
Hmm.
emotion. I gotta feed my kid. I gotta take care. And sometimes people they automatically look at people who do crimes. They look at people who maybe do things the wrong way. And sometimes they assume that they're operating out of an emotional standpoint, like, I need this now. But
No, they're
but they're
operating from
they're
survival.
operating from straight
Yeah.
primal logic. They're like, I need to feed my kids. I don't care if this is the legal way of doing it or not. I need to feed
Ugh.
my kids. And quite honestly, when you look at it from the perspective, you're like, oh, okay, that is why they do that. The same way with people who are multi-millionaire, billionaires, never need money the rest of the day of their life, and they still work as if they can't
Hmm.
do anything else
Hmm.
because the logic in
Hmm.
them, the inability to look at things from a subjective standpoint and only an objective standpoint is leading them to think that they have to keep doing the same thing they've been doing or else they'll lose it. They're still operating at survival, but they're operating in survival at one of the highest level in a financial realm objectively, but subjectively they can
Absolutely.
be the most, they can just feel very, empty, unfulfilled, and like they have to keep the chase going. That's like it's like you're in nature.
Yeah.
It's like you're in nature ultimately. So that is very
Yeah.
profound.
Yeah, and if we have time, I do want to touch on something that you just said because I thought it was so profound. Like when you gave the example of people that commit crimes, and like you said, a lot of times people will they'll say, and that's the thing about just polarity and duality, because you could argue how that is emotional, and you can also argue how that is primal instincts, that is survival. But I would argue that that is pure survival without, because they lack the emotional components. That's why they have the capacity, they literally have the ability to commit the crimes, because it's not about, is this morally correct? This is about living. I'm trying to make it to the next day. That means that I need to do whatever it is that I need to do. There is no moral compass. There is no consciousness. There is primal survival. Like we're talking about caveman days. We're talking about going out and hunting, and like we're talking about primal instincts. And that's the thing about when we are survival mode, when we are stripped of luxuries, of privilege, it sends people there. Now, if you want to talk about systemic things that are put in place to keep people in survival mode, these things are strategies. These things are done strategically. But once you become aware of the program, now you can begin to really rewire yourself. All of this is an illusion. Like it starts with your mind. Once you understand that you don't have to be in survival mode, that is literally just the default conditioning of your nervous system. And when you go through the discomfort of trying to change that, because it is very uncomfortable to rewire your nervous system, because your body, your brain is wired for survival, like we just talked about. Is not wired for success. It's not wired for privilege. It's not wired for luxury. It's wired to survive. But when you understand that I can make different choices, and you do it repetitively, you train your body that it's safe to make different choices. You ain't gotta rob or steal or lie or manipulate to get what you want. Although those things worked, obviously, because we've seen people do it, but what does it do to you? What does it do to your soul? It makes you immoral. You become a detriment, a menace to society, if you will. You don't become um, a person that is here contributing to the world. You become someone who is like a liability. And I truly don't believe that that's anyone's intention, but I also believe that a lot of people don't have time or the space to think about that because they are in survival mode. They don't have time to think about what their actions are doing to someone else if they don't know where their next meal is coming from. You can't afford to think about the emotional part and what is this going to do to someone else and how it's going to make you feel, because the Maslow's hierarchy of survival. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but the baseline is survival. If this is where you are, you don't have time to think about all the other things. Everything else is a privilege. So that's the part where it becomes like, I guess, like murky waters, if that makes sense. Oh, I can't hear you. I don't know what happened.
Yes. So it 100% makes
Okay.
sense.
Hmm.
And it's, with my background, growing up in Chicago, mom from the west side of Chicago, dad from the south side. And then ultimately around seventh grade, they're moving me all the way an hour away to the suburbs where there's like four of the black kids. And like navigating those two environments and also having two polarities as parents, I got to see that at the deepest level, the deepest level of connection that we look to have as a society from people who are from different backgrounds, a lot of time that core thing we just talked about is the difference in understanding why these people make this choices and these people make the other choices. If you're wired for survival, you're not gonna understand sometimes or feel sometimes as if you can make another choice because that's all you know is that survival. In the same way of someone who all they know is safety. They know that their bottom level of the Maslow's hierarchy needs are met. They have never even thought about what it feels like to not know where that next meal coming from, not know where you're gonna lay your head that night. So they cannot fathom the decision making process that goes through someone's head who is not sure if their kids are gonna be able to eat every day. The decisions you will make because of the things that go differently when your nervous system is wired for survival and not for in Maslow's hierarchy of needs terminology, self-actualization. We got the so it's
Mm-hmm.
like it's very beautiful because it's something that I've been able to experience the polarities between parents, the polarities between environments growing up, and through my curriculum that I built out, I instill and I make sure that kids get exposure to these different levels of thinking and the understanding that, hey, this is something that can be worked on. This is also something that does not have to be. It does not have to be. It is harder sometimes because you feel this is the only thing you know. But when you grow up in environments where people are wired for survival, that is what is sometimes just rewarded. Like that's what's rewarded. Same thing when you're self actualization. Every kid in the suburbs talk about they want to start a business, and that's all that everybody like. Oh yeah, start a business. You in the city, it may be a little similar, but then it's different industries. It's more risky industries. It's more, and then sometimes it may not even be a business at all. We talking illegal certain activities. So it's unfortunate that this is one of those core concepts that leave people disconnected who come from different walks of life. And I think it's beautiful you pointed that out because in the professional setting, day to day, we prop up objective data. We don't pay enough attention to subjective data because it's easy to look at CTR click through rate, but what about the feelings that person felt that led them to click on that thing? What did they feel? And these can be addressed through
Mm-hmm.
surveys, not numbers. Like these are conversations,
Mm-hmm.
not back end metrics.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very beautiful thing, and I really do like that was the point made on professional relationships, that because I think that is the overarching thing, that if um, we pull it all back and we go down the levels, going from professional down to uh, friendship, intimate relationships, and then back to self. I think if we just give more of an understanding to how different walks of life reward different things, but they aren't the only things and the only options you have to choose, that things will just become a lot
Mm-hmm.
better at that simple concept there. And I
Mm-hmm.
really love how, as you're talking, I can see the quote in your background. Your thoughts create your, like I saw that quote from the beginning. Your thoughts create your reality, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's very true. It's very true in the sense that,
Mm-hmm.
but also we know that majority of our thoughts are subconscious. In our environment, a lot of times starts with those. Though they start rewarding certain thoughts rather than somebody else's baseline subconscious thoughts during the day are way different than yours. So we can get very deep.
Mm-hmm.
But I did want to leave space to talk about anything that we may not have hit on yet, because you have amazing takes, really profound takes that I believe will provide a lot of value to young leaders coming up looking to lead the next generation of families, businesses, and communities. I want to know if there's anything else that we haven't hit on yet that you really want to expand upon.
Oh, thank you for creating the space for that. I would say something that we have not hit on. Well, as you mentioned, a lot of my work is surrounding relationships, particularly post breakup and divorce. That's my what I specialize in with my clients. Most of my clients come out of relationships, marriages, but the core of my work is to bring people back to wholeness, is to bring people back to self, that actualization that we were just talking about. And it doesn't really matter what the circumstances, whether you come from just survival mode, not being as privileged, being oppressed, you getting your heart broken, you navigating anger, or you just not being able to simply identify how you feel about something. All of this is a disconnect from self. So that is once we come back to self, everything, all of this, relationships, professionalism, survival mode, being able to step out of survival mode, all of this can happen just by coming back home to yourself. So that is something that I just really always like to emphasize, because I know a lot of times I get called in to have these conversations because it's about relationships and things of that nature. The first relationship, the most important relationship, is the one that you have with yourself. And the only way that you can have the most balanced relationship is by not suppressing any parts of you. So this is where what I would say we haven't talked about is shadow work. Shadow work is a big part of healing, of having healthy relationships, of having that fulfilling career, of living a life of abundance, learning to integrate those parts of ourselves that we have been subconsciously taught to hate. And that again starts with the emotions. It's you're not bad for feeling anything. It's the behavior that we must control and not demonizing ourselves because the demons, right, those lower frequency emotions, we shun them when in actuality that's where the healing is, that's where the messages are, that's where the wisdom is. It's in the shadow self. The more you run away from it and try to hide it and suppress it, the more disconnected you will be from yourself.
That that's a very good point to hit on. I think that
Mhm.
um spending time with yourselves, being comfortable with that is a huge disconnect. Shadow work is it's like even like people that do shadow work journals, like it's a very foreign thing for people to sit around and actually think like talk with themselves, like get comfortable with themselves and the deepest part of themselves, the things they've been neglecting for a very long time. And relationships can do that to you because you are in the religious sense, because I am a Christian myself, and I believe that when the Bible talks about becoming one, you do essentially become one. You become interconnected with this individual to the point of like in a good way, in a healthy way, if you're doing it
Mhm.
correctly, you can become like codependent in a sense where this person is your rock. You're one. You're together.
Mhm.
And if you, especially going through that, the clients you're working with going through divorce or going through breakups and things like that, that can be an extreme like shock on the nervous system, and a shock on just getting back to yourself and remembering who you are.
Mhm.
So I really
Mhm.
commend that work that you're doing, the clients that you're serving, and like being able to have the conversations, do the work so that they can have the space to reconnect with themselves, and really get
Yes.
comfortable with
And
that.
ultimately that's what you just said. That's you're connecting with God. You're connecting with God. Yeah.
Yes. And I do think maybe if you can give for someone who's been avoiding that, there's people who are avoidant. They don't like to reflect back on the past and do that work that is required, because we're addressing ourselves. We're not looking at the world and saying blame. We're looking at us. What part do we play? Okay, can you leave us with one tip when it comes to doing that shadow work, that deep inner reflection, and like into our own
Mhm.
lives and the choices we've made? How do we do that better? And for people who are maybe avoiding it, who have the trauma, the bad situations that they just skip through to get by,
Yeah.
but then fully process that later
Yeah.
pop up and create issues.
Yeah. Well, first, I lead with the understanding that everyone's time is their time, and everyone has their own experiences and walk in life. I may not have experienced what the next person have. They probably have experienced something so detrimental, so shocking, so traumatizing that it literally re-traumatizes them to even self-reflect or to even go back. So I always lead from a place of just compassion and not judging. I'm not here to force anyone to do the work. Like that's the thing. Like I'm here for people who are ready because they have experienced enough or seen enough that they like, I need to make a different choice. I need to make a different decision. I hold no one in contempt if they are not ready to self-reflect or look at themselves, there is no judgment there because I understand, or I try because this is something that I'm still working on, is releasing that type of judgment. Because ultimately, when you judge someone else, you're only judging yourself. We are only projecting
Mm,
what it is that we see and that we perceive. So if I think that this person is just completely unhinged because they're not healing and I'm saying all these things about them, but it's just like, where's the compassion for them? That doesn't mean now I have to be tolerant or they have to have access to me, but what it means is I don't carry ill in my heart towards them. So that's the first thing I would say is honor where you are. Don't force your healing. And I know that might sound counterproductive, but honoring where you are is actually healing yourself too, because you're not doing like this fake healing journey. You're not doing it to appease anyone. You're being real with yourself to say, I'm not there yet to go to that depth, or I'm not there yet to relive what I went through. And when you are, you will know because you will make the decision to. And it's about just holding people, it's about seeing the humanity in people first and foremost, no matter where they are. So I would say, yeah, people that are avoidant, don't blame yourself, don't beat up yourself, don't shame yourself, don't guilt yourself. That is ironically the beginning process of healing because you are honoring yourself. Um, be mindful of your actions though. But if you're not willing to go there yet, that's okay. That's honestly okay.
that's amazing. I really do.
Oh, I can't hear you again. It looked like you went back on mute.
Yes. So I was just saying that's amazing. Yes, you do have to. That is the beginning stage of it
Mhm.
is the beginning stage of being avoidant of a thing, but recognizing it, just not really taking that dive in, that foot forward yet. Um,
It's being honest. Because honestly, you're doing more damage by forcing something on yourself that you're not actually ready for. Because now you're less likely to sustain it. You're less likely to take away the wisdom. You're less likely to really embody the lesson, be it, become it, because you're doing it. If you're doing it for any other reason outside of you just being ready for it, you are dishonoring yourself and you're less likely to actually embody the lesson and sustain it because you're probably doing it because you want to keep a partner or because you want to make your parents happy or because you doing it just for money, right? Whatever it is, if it's anything other than just because you are ready to ascend and evolve and heal and get closer to God and be closer to yourself, it's you are actually adding to the trauma that you want to like kind of undo.
yes,
That's the way that I see it. Yeah.
yes, that's very powerful.
Mhm.
I really I really enjoy like deep diving into these areas around emotional intelligence with you, emotional capacity, and just building that um building on the conversation. We know emotional awareness is where the start of all of our personal growth, it starts there. And I really just
Mhm.
enjoyed the conversation with you through starting with yourself, with that being the most important, and then building out into the world, because something without a strong foundation does not stand, and us as the foundation, we're working
Mhm.
with people to rebuild that foundation so that they don't fall over in these the lifetimes that can challenge us, challenge our foundation. You help people build that back up, or not even just build it back up. You're leading them and helping them along the way with rediscovering that their foundation is strong and that they never lost anything. They
Yeah.
just forgot. So I really, really love the work that you're doing. And to close things off, close things off, I would like to you to talk about, what you're doing, like the social media platforms, names of social media platforms you like to be followed on, website, drop any of that stuff, I'm gonna switch it over to you and highlight your video really quick.
All right, thank you. So everyone can follow me at Tisha Monet on Instagram. That's TISHAMONEE. I'm on Facebook as Letitia M. Cooper. I have a book that's available on Amazon, The Breakup That Brought Me Back to Me, How I Got Over My Ex in 45 Days. That's available for purchase now on Amazon. I am available for one-on-one coaching. I offer a 3-month container for my clients where they'll work with me privately, intentionally, and we work through things like the shadow self, getting over a breakup or a divorce, learning to identify, articulate, and regulate your emotions, and just being able to find your purpose in life. So those are some of the things that I work with my clients with. So I offer that. That's a 3-month container. And then I'll be coming out shortly with workshops as well too that can be purchased. Oh, I can't hear you again. I don't know.
I
It
was
looks like
just
it does that automatically.
Yes, I was just
Yeah.
saying. Give me one moment. I'm gonna address the audience for a second. I'm gonna put my mic on
Mhm.
mute so you will not hear me. But just addressing the audience to kind of close things out, and I'll be right back with you. Thank you so much for your time, and I know that the audience really
Awesome.
appreciated you. Had some people pop in, hear what you were saying, and just thought that it was amazing. So, give me one second to transition this to the end really quickly. So, everybody, I appreciate you guys hopping on. We had Tisha Monet, an amazing guest. I'll go ahead and hit the applause sound effect. It's kind of I gotta get a better applause sound effect because the applause sound effect is kind of corny that I got right now. But don't even worry about it. Right now, I'm going to make sure that I plug all her social medias. If this is on YouTube, I'll make sure that her stuff is posted down in the description so you can go buy her book, get the one-on-one coaching if you are somebody who is older, who is above the age of 18, who is struggling with that personal relationship with yourself, and also maybe be going through a tough time in your intimate relationships as well. Definitely go reach out to her and get plugged into her network. And lastly, I have something I really, really need to tell you guys. I was out the country for 3 months, and two drastic things happened in the beginning of 2025 and towards the end of 2025 that I forgot to tell you guys about. And the only thing I can promise is that I'm going to make sure I tell you guys right now that the two things that I went through last year that I'm going to talk about, I'll be talking about next week on my live stream. So I appreciate you guys hopping on, making sure that you hopped on and listened to this live stream. Once again, go follow Tisha Monet on Instagram and follow her on Facebook, all the different platforms she mentioned. If you didn't get it on Instagram, go ahead on my YouTube channel. It is my full name on YouTube. Go ahead and check it out and rewatch it there so you can follow her on all socials. I appreciate you guys and peace.